Carnival does be hot and spicy when Calypso is there. Carnival does be bright and gay. Carnival does be sweet and jumpy when the bandmen appear. Everybody jumping away. They will jump and whine and call for more. Jumping up to the sweet tempo. All the while the officials breaking in. Trouble is the bandmen and the Calypsonians. Scranting after Carnival done. And yet still we keep on jamming. Every year we come out playing Calypsonian and deep and man, east, west, north and south. From every part of this island we make our contribution. Don't leave us out. Remember we are the ones who make the jump, who make you jump up and prance. We're in the middle of the carnival. We are the ones keep up the bacchanal. We are the ones who make the jump, make you jump up and prance. Working to make this fun and spring. Greatest summer festivity, and yet we treated Calypsonians and bandmen like dirt. All you we weren't.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to We're the Ones. And my first line of introduction, my guest this afternoon is Dr. Colin Green of the Princess Margaret School. You know, look at my shirt, PMS the best. We're going to talk about the shirt later. But the first thing I have to do before we even get into real business, Mr. Green, you hear tune? Give we what we word. Hey, you see, I can dance to that, Mr. Green. I can dance to that, isn't it?
Just remember my Wilkie's man, right?
That is why I'm introducing you to quality music. Wilkie's pales in. I mean, Wilkie's great. Don't get me wrong, but we are top of the. We are top of the heap. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I can't resist a good pull every once in a while. So I had to catch Mr. Green on that, He is a Wilkie's man and he in Point People territory, so we had to bless him with some good Pint music by the legend.
Pint man, I've worked in Pint for over 16 years.
True. I'm going to take it back. Sorry. That is a fact. Point People story. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to We're the One. And we have a very, very long day today, this afternoon. It's only 2 hours, but it's packed with lots of things. And I wanted to begin this afternoon by giving my condolences to all who are mourning. It's a long list of people. And if you start to, single out, you'll end up in problems. Safe to say that the Pan fraternity is sending home one of its brothers this afternoon. That should be well on its way. I would love to just go and just get some music, if nothing else, because you know, Mr. Green, when you send home a Pan man, you do it in a particular flair. And so I just want to give my condolences to his family, to the Geminites family, to the extended family. I have to send, back up in Wilkes now, I have to send my good friend my condolences, Sean, and Derek, on the passing of their mother. And I just, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. Shall I say we are getting older? Because we are getting older, because every day you look around, somebody dead. When we were younger, it used to be something that is far away from us, but it's now so close to us. Anyways, so, ladies and gentlemen, it's February. It's the season of sports in secondary schools, and along with the season of sports in secondary schools, forgive me for wearing my bias, I have to let them see, the great school will have its sports day. And yes, Miss Jarvis, I am biased. We know that. Wait, which one am I biased with? Oh, the Mason family also has a. Oh no, that's true. That's the same one. Yes, that's the same one. Sorry, Miss Jarvis. What do you mean I'm biased? I'm biased with what exactly? With PMS, short shirt, Pint People. Which one of the things? Because there's plenty of things, Anyways, yes, Mr. Green is with us today, and he is here to talk what he thinks he's here to talk. But I have a few questions for him first. Mr. Green, how's my school?
It's okay. We're doing well. In the middle of for sporting season, so the spirits are high, and trying to maintain that balance. Well, the academic records have already been set already, so now we conclude our sporting activities up until the 22nd to midterm, and then we're back again to other things that we have to
up until the 22nd, Mr. Green. Today is the 12th.
Yes.
Is a whole session?
As always been a whole session, but well planned out session.
A lot of people are put out when you do this, because how long have you been principal now again, remind us?
Well, I've been the principal of Princess Margaret for 16 years.
Jeez, I've read 16 years. That's like how many generations you've sent through?
Too many.
Gee. I just wanted to, if any of my colleagues from my generation of Princess Margaret are listening, I posted on my page today, Mr. Greed. I don't know if this song forms part of your portfolio now for sports, but anytime you hear the steel band start up with PMS Serenade, start up with Enter into Jerusalem, you know it's sports season. So I posted that to let people know that Mr. Green's lengthy sports season is not new. It's something that is a PM tradition. It's just that he has refined it into an art. Is that appropriate?
I think it's appropriate. I think it's used to be a big part of the traditions of many schools. It was a part of normal school. I think there was a period of time when some educational leaders were misguided into thinking that it was separate. But I think generally speaking now, most educators have returned to the space that
No. You mean the educators who have of that or of that mindset have retired?
Let me say, you're not putting nothing. Some school leaders have returned to that mindset that there's merit in having meaningful activities in school, whether it's sports, the performing arts, or anything like that. It forms a formally part of the development of children. That's how we've always seen it.
Okay, fair enough. So, I'm curious though, because when I was attending Princess Margaret School, while sports it was a big thing, there were many of us. I ran, for the record. I ran, and I did some other kind of something.
Well, there's running and there's running.
So, okay, I won medals when I ran. Okay, let's get that clear. Okay, let's get that clear. Okay, so as I was saying, there are back when I was participating in sports, quite a large number of the students were on the fringes. I've noticed from attending one or two of your events, I'll come next week, that I'll be working, that you seem to galvanize most of the school. What accounts for that?
Well, I think it's a holistic approach to what we do. And I say we because there's a team of people that makes it work. You know, the leaders get either the praise or the blame, depending on which way it goes. But you can't really make this work unless you have a team. And that team includes the children. It's not just the staff. It includes the children. There's a buy-in from them that this is something that they do well. And it's part of their legacy. And so from very early, there's a generation of them that have that recognition that PMS sports is something that has to be dealt with in a way, with a passion. And then we have utilized other means. We have utilized the music, the performing arts, in a way to motivate and celebrate our athletes. And so it's dynamic in a sense that people may see it as sports, but what we're looking to feed out of that is not just the athlete. We're also getting from that the musician, the dancer, the producers, the arrangers, all culminating in
hold on, slow down. Let's go again. We're talking about Sports Day, and you've just brought in a whole entertainment session into this. So let me see if I get this right. So the sporting activities take place at Princess Margaret School, as with every other institution. I mean, it's already on another level. We will discuss that in a little more detail. But you're saying to me, in addition to that you bring together the other aspects of school life?
Yes. So if you go to PM now, if you were to leave here, go to Princess Margaret School right now, the school is just alive because they are getting ready for the launch, which is going to be on Friday. So the top musicians, the serenaders are in full rehearsal mode. The dancers are in full rehearsal mode. The comedians, the entertainers, full rehearsal mode. Those guys who produce and mix, they're all there at the time. The people who produce from the visual arts department, the banners and the IT people, all are at work in preparation for what is going to happen on Friday. So it's a culmination of people. So you'd see a show, a whole display of talents and abilities coming together, all in the celebration of sports. But each of them are people who can and will be celebrated in their own right. So the performers are seeking that opportunity to get on what they call the big stage. So it's an audience. We're having one of our own coming back as part of the filmmaking thing, the photographers doing a little production, all of that. So at the end of it, you can get a little production and covering the sports day from A to Z. The PE people are in mobilization, the Red Cross, that type of activity.
The Red Cross?
Yes, first aid, all those.
All of that from inside of the school?
Yes, and so people who are in, yeah.
Okay.
So it's all centralized. It's not just sports in isolation. It's sports The fashion designers, the people who make clothes.
The fashion designers?
Yeah, man, because you can't come to this PM Sports looking shabby. You have to look your best. Some serious thing. It's not a T-shirt thing. You know, you come to our sports dinner with a T-shirt.
So I gonna have to cut up my T-shirt?
You look decent. You can't come shabby.
Okay, I see. Interesting. So tell me about this launch. You said we're having a sports day launch on Friday.
Yes, the formal activities begin with a launch on Friday. Well, we would have started sports already with the preliminaries. So we would have started on Monday with the cricket preliminaries, but these run after school. So we have normal school, contrary to popular belief. We have normal school to normal
Mr.
time.
Green, you don't have to drop off once here. Lord, me done controversial enough.
Cricket preliminaries, and Tuesday we had the football preliminaries. And so today...
I think I passed and saw that happening.
Today we would have had the culmination of standard points, where everybody in the school run to meet a particular standard to get the points. Tomorrow...
I used to go past standard points.
Yes, well, you sound good. Tomorrow we will have the traditional fun races. So for the people who may not be the superstars on the track, they'll do the sack bag, the lineman spoon, the three-legged, the wheelbarrow, culminating with the great tug of war. That type of fun activity will go on Thursday. And Friday now, we have the formal launch of the sporting activities. So that is a big concert, it's a big celebration. We bring out the big stage.
And this is for just the school population and invited guests.
The gates are open really, but it's for population past and present. PMites are always welcome. We have a very high percentage of comeback. A lot of the kids who leave come back for the launch. They want to see what the opening number is going to be, if it's going to top what it was last year. That you get that type of situation going on. So we are all there. We'll get a nice stage put up. We're going to have good sound, Stonewall as usual, is there to assist us, and always very willing to be a part of the Princess Margaret family. Wadadley events, they all come together to assist us in that way. So it's going to be a nice party. We top it off at the end with some fun activities, hula hoop, some good food.
Good food?
Real good food, yeah. We just have mini food fairs.
I haven't been for a while. It sounds like I need to come back.
Saltfish season, right? We just start it out on that day, that afternoon after, just pure celebration. So one of the early things we'll have tomorrow is the Parade of Champions.
On Friday?
Yes. Okay. Last year we did very, very well. The only thing we didn't win last year is what wasn't, where there wasn't a competition.
Who's we?
Princess Margaret. We won every
okay.
competition. We won volleyball, male, female, football, male, female, cricket, basketball. We just had a really, really, really dominant year last year. So we are going to celebrate that.
Each team.
Okay. Even though track and field, we didn't have the inter-school championship. We have had individual athletes who have done so well. We have people like Sunaya Jones, who has gone out to the youth. Yes, she's back. Youth Olympics. Recently, she went to the Melrose Games, came second. So there's just still a lot to celebrate, and so we're going to be in celebrating mood on that.
And ladies and gentlemen, may I tell you, having been to one or two of those events, it's a real... It surpasses sometimes what we do at a national level at Princess Margaret School. Yeah.
Yeah, then we turn over on Monday. We have the finals of both cricket and football. And Tuesday we're in YMCA for the team sports, basketball, volleyball, netball. And Wednesday is the big day. Wednesday is the track and field meet. And this year we are going to be at Sticky Wicket. And my marketing people tell me I have to stress to the public that we're going to be at Sticky Wicket, because I think there was some confusion. The flyer says Coolidge Cricket Ground, which is the correct name for...
Yes, that's the name of the facility.
Some people seem to think that we're talking about Powell's now. We're talking about the
the former Stanford Cricket Grounds.
Yeah, the
Sticky Wicket.
The 2020 place. That's where
we're
going to be.
All right. Okay.
We start at 2 in the afternoon and go into the evening. It's going to be nice. So apart from the running, we try to make it an event. There's entertainment after as well.
From the students again?
No, some from the students, and we normally bring in a house band. I think this year the house band is going to be LSA.
Lord, mash up the place again.
They're not going to mash up. They're going to be normal.
Which is mash up?
So it's going to be a fun activity.
Okay. So, this is a personal question. How Red House doing?
Well, if you're not Blue House, you're not doing so well.
Mr. Green, that's why you come here and you're blue. I should have just put you outside. Please. What Blue House come last year?
Well, they've always come. They've come first.
Blows came first last year?
Yeah, Blows has come first for the last 10 years.
Thief in this.
Well, I hear that. They said that to me this
Every
morning.
year.
No. The people who normally tell me that, a little first farmer told me that we played vent for them this morning. Don't judge me, God didn't Pluto.
So, how has been the support from the PMS alumni in this event? I'm going in stages. The alumni, I know you spoke about the corporate community, especially in particular Stonewall and with that event services. And maybe I should stick with them first. Besides those two key partners, how has support been for this event that you put on, this mega event? How many students you have at the school, by the way?
That was just about 1,000.
Just about.
Yeah.
Any school has more than you?
Well, I don't know. I just count me.
Curious. Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think, listen, what we have found over the years that we have to treat sport as an investment, and we invest ourselves, because over the years, corporate support hasn't been rich. Mm-hmm. Well, for a couple of reasons. The corporate community in general probably don't send their kids to Princess Margaret, and if we regularly beat them, they're not going to give us their money. So we have accepted.
Mr. Green, really?
Yeah, that's how I believe.
So your rationale is that the corporate, you know what? Go ahead.
Yeah, if you beat them regularly, then the people, they're not going to give you the money. Mm-hmm. So we have found a way to try and support ourselves, and that is why we try to produce an event that helps to pay for itself, and then support sport throughout the year. So whereas sports, they used to be free, anybody can come. We can't operate like that anymore. Because
plus you have an event. You have a serious event.
But for you to have quality athletes, you have to invest in them. You have to provide them with the things that are necessary. But we have had support from some people. For instance, Premier Beverages for years has been, they will supply us a water supply. We don't drink anything but Oasis. There have been that support over the years where that is gone. Captain Brown from Supreme Security
and Insane.
He has been a tower of support over the years. Initially, he was the one that used to sponsor all our medals and so on. And now he helps us with the security personnel. He gives us just about anything that we want in that support. He has been. So these are all part of the PM family.
Yes.
The Princess Margaret people who are a part of that dynamics. In the past, we've had good support from Flo as well, that have supported a generation of Princess Margaret School athletes. So we have had some support. But the way that we are structured, we are not just dependent. We're not going cap in hand to anybody. The development is too important for us to do that. So we try to generate an income that is then invested back into the quality athletes. And over the years, we have seen the produce. When you look at them, the new generation of Antiguan athletes, there's no doubt that Princess Margaret School is making its mark, and that the plan that we had in place initially is beginning to work. If you look at, let's take track and field, for instance. When you look at the last Olympics, large percentage of the team came from Princess Margaret. CAC, the record breakers, they're from Princess Margaret. The now top-class collegiate athletes, people like Jess St. John, who's at Kansas State. Well, CJ just graduated from the University of Georgia. We have some young ones that just went off on football scholarships as well. So the merger is beginning to work. Then we have a new generation of fencers who are not doing so badly either. So hold on. So you now have gone into the elite sport, and you're taking over that too? It's actually started at Princess Margaret, and we've done pretty well with that. So we've done pretty good for ourselves. And meaning the students have done pretty good.
Yes,
for
understood.
Themselves. And I think a lot of people miss that point. So apart from the ones that we just have the fun and the enjoyment, I think what is great about the Princess Margaret student population, they have a culture of supporting their own, which a lot of people can learn from. They're very warish about that, and I commend them for that. They're in the place. They're not looking for anybody to
I'm convinced it's that.
They're not looking for anybody to
Mr. Green, I'm convinced it's that institution, because that warishness is a...
Yeah, they'll get out there in a good way and support one another. And so we kind of encourage that. But we have had fruits, and we continue to bear fruits where that is concerned.
You said that you reinvest in your athletes. is that something that is a norm in terms of school sports in Antigua? I know you say you're going to say you're only talking for yourself, but I know you are familiar with how our school sports operate. And I would want you to tell me, when you say you invest in your athletes, what do you mean? And if this is a unique thing that Princess Margaret does?
Well, I don't know if it's a unique thing that Princess Margaret does. Rightfully, other schools will have to speak for themselves.
Right.
But what you have to find, if you're looking quality, it doesn't come by chance. And it's a team effort. You have the athlete, you have the parents, but sports is expensive in many cases.
Very.
And so what we have done formally is every little way that we can assist the athlete as an individual, the athlete as a team, we find a way of doing it. So if you see us, for instance, and look at our football team playing, we have an obligation. They mustn't look shabby. We have a phrase that we use to the whole school. We said, listen, you're not better than anybody, but nobody's better than you. So first of all, you have to go there. You have to go there with self-confidence. You have to look good. We have to equip them with whatever it is that the coaches say they want. If somebody gets injured, we have to be in a position to assist with physiotherapy. We have to do that.
So the school underwrites the fees?
From time to time, yes, it does.
Okay.
And there's some people who we may put on a feeding program because you're away from home. You might be going to practice at 4, but you leave. So in between, there has to be sustenance. You have to make sure that, and then there's celebration. So every year, you'll be aware that we have our sporting awards.
I'm very aware.
And it has to be done in a classy way because a lot of these kids put a lot of energy into it. You have to make them feel good. This year we went over to Jolly Beach. We had a really, really grand time.
Yeah, he didn't invite me. Ladies and gentlemen, and guess what now? It's my baby that was the star, and Mr. Green forgot me, but yeah, all right, go ahead.
Me? He should have invited you. He had his own ticket.
He wasn't here. He said he forgot. He said, Miss Williams, I forget.
So it's a holistic thing that you're talking about.
Right.
And
but these things cost real money.
Yes, they do.
Could you give us an estimate, an idea as to how much? So, for example, the production of Sports Day 2019, what's your budget? The whole sports process.
The sports itself, the week, the week itself will probably run us somewhere in the region of $10,000-$12,000.
$12,000. Yeah. And you anticipate making this back?
Well,
from the
in
various...
the past, we have made it back.
Okay.
We're not sure what's going to happen this year because, our traditional home is Yasco, which is closer to
everybody.
And so that's one means that we used to make it back. We're hoping, that's why we're trying to promote it, that the traditional people come and support where it is. So we're kind of iffy about what's going to happen. We're just hopeful that it's going to be supported. But we have in the past. But we'd spend sometimes upward of $37,000.
On what?
On sports.
For the year?
For a year.
And where do you get the resources from?
What?
You said the corporate community is not necessarily your biggest benefactor.
No, so we generate the funds.
How?
Through the activities like these.
So, no, because I want, I'm not being difficult, Mr. Green. I want the public to understand because I think a lot of people see the kinds of activities that happens at schools like Princess Margaret and other schools without any regard for the effort that the faculty puts in to ensuring that beyond whatever means you get from the Ministry of Education. Does the ministry, for example, between the Ministries of Education and Sports, are the sports programs in the school supported financially beyond the organization?
Well, the way how sports is structured in our schools, the Ministry of Sports is the leading agency.
Right.
The ministry will tell you that they support sports, they finance sports, but no money goes to the school. So they'll probably hire a coach. If it's cricket, they help with gears, but there's no money that actually goes, there's no cash.
Right, that goes into the school. Right.
That goes into the individual development of the program in the school. That's a school responsibility. And so you do that primarily through fundraising. And in our case, the sports day itself is a major fundraiser.
Okay.
And this is a vision we had, and that's why we changed our sports from the day to the evening and then into the night. It gives an opportunity for the public to come and enjoy what's there and pay a reasonable fee and come in. If you look at what happens sometimes, the students as well from other schools have bought into the kind of vibes at Princess Margaret School. And if you're into track and field, really and truly,
it is the place to be.
It is the place to be because some of the showdowns at our sports day are probably bigger than the showdowns at at inter-school. Because if sometimes we have 1, 2, 3 of the top-ranked athletes in the country, only 2 can run in an event. So you're running for your place. It's a trial. You're running for your place. Your opponent to run at inter-school. So they're marquee events that people.
Plus, you're running for your house and you're running for the pride and
those kinds of things. And house is still the basis, but the quality of the meet is more important now. So we have restructured the system to meet that. So if you're paying $10 to come into the games, you want to see quality running. And so it can't just be based randomly by house. So we have reorganized. So we have all kinds of mechanisms. We trade and so. We have trading deadlines. And so in between. So if Red House have 5 sprinters and you can only run 2 in a race, you may want to trade 200-meter people and you pick up a couple of 800 people. So when we put 8 people in a
lane, you're getting the best.
You're still a Red House man.
Mm-hmm. Right? But you know you're running for.
But today we are just trade you out to Blue House. We trade you out to Green House. The points.
You know what? Now I understand now how Blue House win. It's all right. No. I clearly understand how Blue House wins. Carry on.
It is the quality of the.
I accept that.
Game you're talking about.
I accept that. But knowing how you like to go what you call it? Search out the elitists.
Well, that's
I'm sure you will just get the best.
There's no evidence of that anyway. That's rumor. People sometimes want to come by us and we accommodate them.
And I understand. Not people sometimes want to come by you. People want to go to the best.
I don't know. But the point is that one thing I tell people, you can't build a dynasty by chance.
Facts.
You have to work.
Facts.
You have to work at it. And say, I think there are a lot of young children, to their credit, they simply want to be in an atmosphere where they're going to be supported. And I think part of the problem with Caribbean sports is that we talk oftentimes about the development of the individual athlete and how they're going to perform. There's one element we tend to forget. The support factor. We have to nurture a culture of support. You understand what I'm saying? Every athlete performs better when there's an audience, when there's somebody cheering them on. I mean, we used to go to inter-school and we used to have professional cheerers. People, that's their job. You have to give them awards because they're good at it. They don't wait at me, they have the thing planned, So at Prince, I would say, so where we setting up, there's one section on the 200 corner.
You mean for inter-school?
Yes. You have a crowd and it's the corner for the 200 because that's when in that track and field they say the beer jump on your back. That's when you get tired. And when you reach a corner and you're tired and you hear them making noise, you get energy.
When you hear your fans.
And then we have a section for the finish line to bring you home. And they have people who just revel in that. You have somebody like Dante Joseph, who just lives. She says, sir, I have my outfit ready. She doesn't go anywhere outside of a pink and gray. She's sought out. Real vibes and real school spirit and real good support. Last year we honored her, gave her an award, because we recognize that aspect of it is just absolutely important. And you can't take it for granted.
I need to go talk to her. I call myself the official spectator, but it sounds like she blow me out.
I spoke to Dante, so she doesn't work for anybody in 2 days. When PM is having sport, they know she doesn't work.
Mr. Green, Mr. Brown is online. I'm just letting you know, Mr. Lenroy Brown is on. I'm talking about Blue House. Please, whatever. So depressing. But so, just in terms of us, I think our next guests are here, so we can begin to look to wrap up. I just wanted for you to remind us of the events that are upcoming. Tell us how much the cost is. I don't know you're still charging $5 for sports, but go ahead. I mean, for the children, I understand. But
PM price is $5. It's $10 so the flyer you see there, that's the PM price.
Okay.
So inside, $5 for the students, $10 at the gate gets you in. And we have other things that you support. We're not going for the kill. We're just going for that. Yeah.
How do I get there, though? Because like you said, you're not at Yasco anymore.
Well, we have organized a shuttle service.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, we are working with the National Transport Board, the school bus service, to provide a shuttle service to and from Yasco. The shuttle starts running at 12 o'clock. The pickup point is from Princess Margaret School. And we go across. And I'm very grateful for the management at Sticky Wicket as well, because we were in a bind as to where we were going to go this year. And they were gracious enough to be able to host us. The facilities, they're excellent, especially for the entertainment part. It's not the ideal, it's not custom made for track and field.
Right.
But in terms of entertainment, I think the vision of that place was just absolutely wonderful. And I think when we're beginning to build other facilities and so on, we don't need to go a million miles, we
just step up the road and learn.
Step across and see, because when I look at the structure of that place, it's not elaborate, but it's certainly useful in terms of facilitating things like that. So I think the logistical things have been covered. We just now want to encourage, especially the PMites, old and young, to come on out and support support this activity.
So, Mr. Green, in wrapping up, I'm offering my shirt, we gonna get the designer to do some, and you can probably have a few there in the different colors, so the PMites who come out can also put their hand in the kitty and get a shirt.
Yes, and you're wearing old colors now. We've so changed.
I'm saying you can move it to new colors, but I'm just saying.
Because now, let's say for track and field.
He just must mash me up, right?
A couple of years ago, we were wearing grey and pink, and the student, the athletes came to me and said, "So listen to me, this grey and pink thing not working for the track and field thing." I said, "What happened?" They said, "Listen, the stars come out at night. We need something to shimmer,
glitter." Yes.
And so we changed it to black and fuchsia pink. So when we run,
so I can get my black and fuchsia pink shirt. That is for inter schools.
Yes, that's.
But for Sats for Wednesday, what am I supposed to wear?
You wear your old house color.
So I can wear my red shirt?
You can wear a red shirt.
Okay.
And if you think blue is tonic, you can wear a red shirt.
You have to go investigate. Listen, I am going to lead an investigation into how the principal's house keeps winning.
It's about colors. It's about the red and the blue and the green and so on and the yellow. But right after that finish on Wednesday, all those colors
it's fuchsia and black.
All those colors combine to make pink and grey. And we put on the war paint and we're one Princess Margaret.
Yes, we know how
and
that
everybody
works.
else shiver when we come to the party. So we're hoping the minister fix Yasco
quickly.
Quick, because we're in a bad mood. We lost in the semi-final football. Somebody have to pay for that.
Yeah, so when PM lose, some people have to pay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have been pleased and honored to have in the house with me my first guest. By the way, though, just for the record, I'm going to have to mash you up and get a lassie. I already have my program planned for today. Mr. Green informed me that Princess Margaret Sports Day is around the corner, and I cannot have a program without ensuring that he gets his coverage. So what can I do?
It is your
That's what I'm saying. What can I do? But you know how it is. It's been a pleasure, Mr. Green.
And it is a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody, for those of you from those other schools, come and see what your future domination will look like. Come and look at us. Princess Margaret Sports Day. Next Wednesday, the 20th, it will be at the Coolidge Cricket Grounds. It begins at 1:30. Admissions for us is $10. And if when you get there, you like what you see and you want to give something extra, Mr. Green never refuses money. Remember, just so you remember, this Sports Day event costs upwards of $10,000, $12,000 plus they reinvest in the athletes throughout the year. And we know that sports is the biggest business. And here is Princess Margaret giving our young people a platform to begin to move to the next level. Mr. Green, thank you very much.
My pleasure, and you're welcome. And I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity.
No problem. Anyhow I can, I will help. No, especially if you ever make Red House sort out. All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. All right. I turn off this one, right? This one? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We had with us our first guest, Dr. Colin Green, principal of the best school in Antigua and Barbuda, potentially the universe. Is it too loud, Mr. Johnson? You okay? Principal of the best school, talking about our annual Sports Day activities. It's like, as he said, it's going to be a whole event because the entertainers will be out and so on and so forth. So support it. It's $10 for those of us who are no longer in school. So PMS alumni in the Butterfield, they pay $5 too. $10. Bring your $10. Meet me there. I wonder if Mr. Green, we're having an all people race or a farmer, or that is not the place.
This is a professional meeting.
All right, so those of us who think we can try a thing, we will have to arrange ourselves another time. Now, so that's just to remind us all that event. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know that we are in the midst of what is internationally, I say internationally known because I don't know about Mr. My next guest and I will have that conversation. We're in the midst of what is internationally known as Black History Month. And it would be remiss of me, of course, if we did not take the opportunity to have some very relevant discussions about ourselves during a period such as this. So with me this afternoon, first of a few guests, I have Mr. Lenworth Johnson, my good old friend, once upon a time. Wait, today's all my friends in the house, you know. Anyways, yes, with me. And we are going to be discussing a few elements of our Black African history.
Yes, well, as pertains to myself and the Reparations Commission and so on, if you want to.
However, Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us. Normally, when I have guests for the first time, I normally encourage them to just share with my audience a bit about themselves so that, you know, we have a little perspective as to the individual. Not for now in the area that you're here to speak with us, but what you do outside of that. And then we will go to our main discussion.
Well, I'm Lenworth Johnson. I am fairly well known in Antigua and Barbuda.
Oh, Mr. Johnson, you're on Facebook Live, so you're going internationally. So we have persons from the U.S., yes, who are going to start commenting soon, who are listening, and a few people in we have one person in Italy who's sharing, so yes.
Yeah, I'm an attorney at law, basically. I was, in my former life also, I was an accountant. I have been a politician.
Have been? Politicians can retire permanently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I use the past tense. I've been a politician. And presently I am, I basically keep a low profile and involve myself in things that, interest me, including the whole issue of reparations for slavery, and I'm a member of the African Slavery Memorial Society headed by Edith Oladole.
Okay.
And I'm also a member of the Antigua Barbuda Reparations Support Commission, which is actually a government commission.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a bit more about the African Slavery Memorial Society. That I'm curious. I've always been curious about that.
Yes, well, it's a society that is set up, and the main person is, we all know, Edith Oladole. And it's set up to basically ensure that black persons, the people of Antigua and Barbuda, particularly those of African heritage, do not forget where we came from. Because that really is the whole intention. That we celebrate our African history, our African roots. We have pride in it. We ensure that we do all we can to remember those slaves and those persons who fought for our freedom, those persons who underwent that horrific transatlantic trade, and in effect that we remember them. And the society is set up to ensure that we even go further, make sure we educate the public, educate the children in school, do whatever research we have to do to ensure that our African heritage is maintained. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, some members of society will be going to London on a trip arranged by our ambassador in London, and we'll be going to places like Royal Albert Hall and the Dockland Slavery Museum, and some universities, hopefully like Oxford University and so on, to ensure that what has happened to our ancestors and ourselves is not forgotten. Not that we're going to dwell in the past and so on and everything. We have to move forward, but ensure that it's not forgotten, really.
I have this is a question that always poses a fight. I want to put to you.
I don't want to get this especially a PM person because, I thought you were a high school person anyway.
What?
You know?
High school?
I thought you were in high school, but
oh dear.
that's to throw you off anyway. So go
That's
ahead.
unfortunate. No, that doesn't throw me off. I'm sorry. Yeah, I realize a few people have had that unfortunate misnomer. But no. I'm the best. I'm the best. I can only be from the best.
Okay.
You understand? We won't get into that. We won't have to. But there's always been, my mother's birthday is on May 25th, African Liberation Day.
Yes.
That was my first foray into understanding and appreciating this. And one of the arguments that has always been around me is that we're Caribbean people. I mean, we were forcibly, our ancestors were forcibly removed from a particular situation. And since we've been here, while we are still dominantly of the black race, we've had so much commingling and so much stripping of that Africanness that can we still claim to be of that? What would be your response?
Oh yes, certainly, because I think it was Marcus Garvey who said, if you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. And a tree without roots is no kind of tree at all. You have to know where your roots are. So when you come into the branch and you blossom and you go out, if you don't have a strong root, you'll be nowhere. And I think I know where you're coming from. We are Caribbean citizens, but we all came here as a result of the slave trade. Most of our African brethren came here because of the slave trade. And there is a lot of repercussions, legacies of the slave trade, etc. One of my things when I was also growing up, I always, whenever I would hear about Africa, read about the African kingdoms, you always wonder, where is it you come from? Where is it you come from? I've been to Africa on a number of occasions.
A number of occasions?
Yes, on a number of occasions.
I can't read so on.
Yeah, South Africa, the Gambia, and one or two other places. And you always wonder, okay, yeah, we're from Antigua. We talk about Barbados, Antiguans, and Kitts, and so on. But where really we come from? Me personally, what part of Africa I come from?
You were able to answer that question?
Well, as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I'm here also. By way of DNA analysis, by way of DNA test, by African Ancestry.com.
That actually works?
Yes, it actually works. It actually works.
We will get into that discussion in a bit.
Yes.
We will get back to that. But I had one more question I wanted to ask you before we dug a little deeper in that. Why? We're always told we need to know. Why? Why is it? Why do I have so many issues burdening me down today as an Antiguan and Barbudan citizen, as a member of this OECS and CARICOM family. We have so many issues we are trying to fix and figure out and figure where we are now. Why is it important to know our African heritage? Why?
Because if you don't know where you come from, you won't know where you're going. We have to have pride in ourselves. Black people, as far as I'm concerned, many of us have low self-worth. Because of slavery. But we must understand that.
Do you think we understand the connection between so many things about us, our work ethic and so on? Because you say low self-worth, but I see there's a lot of little things that are bundled into that low self-worth. And we often get bashed over the head for this low self-esteem. Do you think enough of us recognize that it is linked to our past?
No, I don't think so. Due to colonialism, due to slavery, we have had health problems, we have work and productivity problems, we have a number of problems, we have cultural problems, during slavery, our cultural heritage was taken away. Taken away from us because, of course, they didn't want us to be able to connect with Africa, connect with ourselves. So it's a matter that, well, hey, anything black is bad, right? Anything black is bad. And when you really think about it, when you research, the African kingdoms, the African society, our African ancestors, even though it may not have been, I don't look as if, England is the greatest, America is the greatest, Europe is the greatest. We had great African kingdoms and tribes and principles, and just like anywhere else in the world. And
so do you feel an awareness of, if we became more aware of that aspect of ourselves,
pride in ourselves
contribute to us breaking this cycle?
Yes. I think and there's many ways of doing it, and it will take a while, but pride in Africa, where we come from, pride in black people, pride in ourselves.
You have been to Africa, you said a number of times. Do the Africans know of our existence? Do they care?
Yes, they do know. I wouldn't say everybody knows.
I'm just saying,
course,
right.
Yeah.
Do they know that there's a link between us and them?
Yes, certainly, especially those countries where you had the slave trade, the West African countries, Ghana, Benin, Sierra Leone, etc. My ancestry, according to AfricanAncestry.com, is on the father's side. On my father's side is out of Angola. And on your mother's side, my mother's side is out of Sierra Leone. So it is, you have matriarchal and patriarchal.
Slow down. Explain to me about the AfricanAncestry.com first. I want to get an appreciation for that to see how you can then figure out your month.
No, it's DNA analysis. I am no expert in DNA analysis.
I know, but
what
inspired you to go check it out?
Well, I'll be very frank. I've always, all my life, wanted to know where I come from, right? On a certain birthday of mine, a milestone birthday, my daughter, my last child, my daughter, knowing of my interest, purchased a gift certificate in respect from AfricanAncestry.com.
Okay.
But she knew I always had this curiosity and desire, and my whole life. In fact, she's now in her 20s, and for the last 5 years, I've always been speaking to her about it, etc. And beginning to have pride in herself, and she's made me very proud in terms of her development, etc. And now that she's becoming a black woman, I see that that elevation.
You're bearing fruits.
Yes. And how beautiful it is when your daughter gives you something like that. So I went and I did it, right? And the results were that.
Slow down. So what did you do?
Oh, it was it was a test. They send you the kit, and it's basically a cheek swab. You do it properly. Once you do it properly, they tell you what to do, and you put it back and you send it. And 6 weeks later, you get a result.
And from this cheek swab, they can determine both sides of your ancestry?
Yes. The science is there. I don't want to get into the science. It's all explained in what the letters they give you and so on. But please don't ask me about.
No, but it was sufficient for you to be confident.
Yes. Oh yes. Persons may question or whatever, but many people all over the world do it, including maybe if you want some of the more popular actors and so on, etc. And it is quite bona fide. Put it this way: it is bona fide as far as I am concerned. In fact, also the African Slavery Memorial Society, headed by Mrs. Oladele, they also that is one of the things that they promote, the taking of this test to establish your African ancestry. Before I forget, one of the reasons I came here also was to inform your listeners of a lecture.
I haven't forgotten. We're coming to that just now.
Okay.
I have not forgotten. There's a method to the madness. Bear with me.
Okay. I forget that, yeah.
So
There usually is.
So you did this test, and it revealed the two sides of your ancestry. Remind me again where you said.
Father's side was out of Angola, and my mother's side was out of Sierra Leone. And they can actually...
I mean, we're not even simple. I mean... Okay, go ahead.
No,
so, I'm curious. Have you known of anyone else in Antigua who's done that test?
Yes.
And the kind of results? I'm curious about the results. Are they showing that there's a similar trend, or we're scattered all over?
Most persons would be from West Africa. I know one person who have had I don't know if you want to call her name. So
no, you don't. No, I don't know the names. I was just thinking.
I know at least one person who has the same results as I do out of Angola. But many persons are out of Cameroon, Ghana. Certainly have a lot of Ashanti persons here, persons of Ashanti heritage, Yoruba. Out of Nigeria, Benin. You know, those
areas. I want
areas.
to pick where I am with my heritage. I can't do that, right? You have to get it.
Yeah, I wanted to pick two, but it don't really work that way.
Right.
It don't really work that way.
So now, you found out this heritage, and then what did you do? I mean, I'm sure you would have visited before you did this particular thing. Would you have been to Africa before you did this?
I've been to Africa, but I had not been to Angola.
All right, so you went to Angola.
I went to Angola.
And how was the experience? In
Excellent,
general,
beautiful, which is what I'm going to talk about at my lecture.
So when is the lecture?
The lecture is next week, Wednesday, and as I think your former guest was saying, he's having his sports day on Wednesday. Also, a lot of things happen next week, Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday is
but this is 7:30 at the UWI Open Campus. On pick your either Factory Road if you want to say or Queen Elizabeth Highway. I'm never too sure what to say.
And just opposite the old hospital.
Right, everybody knows where the UWI Open Campus is, or used to be UWI Extramural Center.
Studies, yes.
In the old days.
No, they don't know our oldies names.
They won't know that, right?
No, you have to give them the modern name.
UWI Open Campus, 7:30 p.m. Wednesday, 20th, exactly 1 week from now, 20th of February, and I'll basically be, expanding and outlining and
on that experience.
Basically.
While you're going to be doing that, I have just one question to titivate our guests, our listeners, to come out. Did you share with them where you're from, and perhaps why you were so curious?
Of course.
And what was the feedback?
Oh, they were overjoyed. In other words, to me, my whole thing, I went back home. That was my whole mantra, if you want to call it that.
You went back to
I
Africa,
went back home.
Okay.
I went back home, and they were glad to welcome me back home and adopt me as their own, etc. Beautiful. It was a beautiful trip.
And
not a very long trip, but
you got to explore their cultural traditions and so on.
Unfortunately, not as much as I would have liked. Of course, I would have gone to the museums and so on, but I would have not as much as I would have liked, because it was the trip took me, in effect, in Angola about 1 week, actually 5 to 6 days. The other days were traveling, traveling going, traveling coming, 2 or 3 days, so even though you spend maybe 10, 12 days,
You should have just rode across the Atlantic.
half of it is traveling.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. He was just told he should have just rode across the Atlantic.
You know what I mean?
He said row across the Atlantic. That's a curious, because I was just about to ask you, what's the average price for a trip like that? Say compared to, even if you don't give us dollars and cents, say compared to you're going to England or the US for a vacation. Because, most of us in Antigua, the minute you hear vacation, we're going to the US, we're going to England, those kind of places. Comparatively, is it double? Is it half? Is it what? Is it something that we could begin to favorably consider? Because I want to go. And every year I want to go, and every year I'm like, okay, maybe not this year, next year.
Yeah.
How many trips do I have to put off to do this one?
Well, one of us traveled to London, and it's probably maybe, I would say, 1.5 times the
That's not
ticket
so bad.
alone, 1.5 times the value of a ticket
That's not so bad.
to London. Not so bad, no. It all depends on if you get if you know how to get the discounts and
Sound
this
like I
sort
need
of
to
thing
talk
and
to
so
you.
on.
Africa is
Right.
Europe's neighbor, you know, forget that.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm just
You know?
wondering about the cost because for example, St. Kitts is close to us, and just the difference in the tickets are already ridiculous. So that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So, is there anything that you would like to? I wanted to, and before I'm going to switch to the reparations process, but before we get to that, is there anything that you think, if you were to be responsible person, say, let me put it in context. Person, like you say, I use my family members as too much of a benchmark when I'm talking, but I use them because they're the ones I interact with most often. The first time I went to watch 12 Years a Slave, it hadn't come to Antigua yet on cinema. We had a showing at the museum, and I took my son with me, and I kept watching his reaction more than the movie, because while the more adult persons in the crowd were in shock and were angry and so on, he was watching it just as he would watch. For him, he said it was like a horror movie. There was nothing resonated in him about connecting what was happening in the movie to his historical past, which bothered me. So I have spent years trying to work on letting him get an appreciation for his Africanness and the connection. So my question to you is, if you were responsible for sending a message, just in general, about the need to connect back with our African roots, what would that message be? If you had that responsibility to especially for our young people,
Education in the schools.
what would it be?
What would it be?
What do you think would be the tenets of your? I know it would be a long process. What would be the 2 or 3 key things that you would want to push in something such as that?
Well, I think I've said it before. Pride in our race. Let me just, to me, is the bottom line. Pride in our race. Due to history, due to what has happened, the slave trade, we have been downtrodden. We are getting back up, right? And many of us have gotten back up. Barack Obama became president of the United States.
And they're going to pay
Right?
for that for decades to
Barack
come.
Obama became president of the United States. But
And
still,
they're
there's
going
a
to pay
lot.
for that for decades to
If
come.
you just listen to the news every day, you know there's a lot. So, pride in our race. That is what we have to me, we have to do.
Let me, on that note, introduce our second guest who's joined us. Dr. Knight, thank you for joining us. I will give you an opportunity to introduce yourself properly in a minute, but I want to just piggyback on that question to you. We teach Caribbean history in schools, and part of that Caribbean history, there's a topic on slavery and rebellion. I don't know if it's changed. When I did it back then, when you had to do the Haitian Revolution, slavery and da-da-da-da-da. And that sums up, to my mind, in most schools. There are a few that now do more African-centric history. But that sums up for me what we are taught about our history, our blackness. If you were to have a hand in broadening the dialogue, maybe changing the dialogue, the objective being to get us more in tune with our blackness, what would you do?
Well, there's myself and others believe, and I'm sure you subscribe to that belief too, that there's a need to have a program of history, a well-organized program for teaching history with the teaching of history from our perspective. And of course, there have been moves. There are professors like
Vernon Shepherd,
and so on in UWI who have been working on that project. And history teachers, we have heard complain, some, those who are mindful of that situation in Antigua, that there is not a cohesive history plan, for teaching history throughout the schools. In other words, somebody might learn something of history in primary school that doesn't quite connect to what they learn in secondary school, or in early secondary that doesn't connect well to what they learn in late secondary. And it is altogether, it is not a clear progression of the history from our perspective as the downtrodden. I, of course, grew up, came up in the era when of black consciousness and the arrival of Rastafari in Antigua and the
as a minority group.
Right, the civil rights movement going on. Luther King was shot, I was like 13, and it was during this time we spoke about Malcolm X, and we knew all the Black Panther members. I read their books, Cleaver and all that. So it was a period of great black consciousness, great awakening back then. And so that we had a sort of a unique experience in that era that, of course, these young people today don't have. And so we can't really blame them, but I have to put some blame on people of our generation for not having handed down some of that knowledge and to them.
Permit me for interrupting you there.
Mm-hmm.
How would I take it myself out, I'm younger than you, plenty younger too, almost spring chicken.
Mm-hmm.
How would your generation, given all of the challenges that your generation faced, found the time to do the kinds of work that would have been necessary so that my generation and beyond, get the kind of knowledge that you think we should have gotten?
Well,
because you're passing the blame. I just want to know how. Y'all had to fight everything.
Well, no, because our generation was just benefiting from the great labor struggles.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, you would see that education and all that being, offered at secondary level to the average person and all that was just coming in that period. That is what was fought for by people from the cane fields and all that. We came when tourism and all that was taking over. So we weren't in the heart of that fight. And but at that time, you had the young working class people in Antigua, the young working people who had just left school and were in the new working class, the literate workforce now that was rebelling for some change while the Black Conscious movement came. And it is, something like it's that movement that influenced the momentum of the Antigua Workers Union when it was formed and all that. Was a young, literate working class refusing to accept the plantation conditions brought from the cane field to the hotel. So it was an era of that sort of awakening, that consciousness. Antigua actually, through the, fired the first salvo in that. Afterwards, it ran right through the Caribbean, Trinidad in 1970 and all that.
And guess what? They all documented it, and we still largely have it as an oral tradition.
We really spread that working class black working class consciousness throughout the region. Now, at that time also, and coming out of that struggle, in 1971, for instance, I speak of it all the time, the late Tim Hector came to teach at the Princess Margaret School when I was there.
School. Sorry.
Right? Now, I always say that when Tim was teaching history, it was like the Tim Hector show. Because people from all over the school who had time would come around the classroom, and Princess Margaret School was the hub of A-level studies those days. And so a lot of people who were there for A-levels and what's not used to crowd the doors, the windows, everywhere. And it was so interesting, so exciting, because here was Tim teaching history for the first time from the perspective of the people who were brought and those who were met in the Americas. We were reading, but the history texts we had were like the people who came. That was the title of one book. The other one was the making of the West Indies. I think Professor Auger from St. Lucia, and so were involved in that, but it was still so much the perspective of the Europeans who were still saying, the Caribs, because they resisted, they were facing warlike.
Excuse me, you guys use the people who came for history? You use the people who came in school for history?
Making of the West
And the making of the West Indies?
Yes.
So much me thinking I'm young.
Yeah, I did.
I use them too.
I did use both the people who came and the making of the West Indies.
Those books are so old?
But yeah, this is early 70s. And I know Tim brought his own books. And he brought Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James. And he gave us extensive notes on the Haitian Revolution and all that. Now, because of that, the period in which he was doing that and the great interest everybody had, and then you had the African Liberation Day marches beginning 1972 and all that, I don't think at that time we imagined that we would have gone so far back right now in terms of the consciousness of our own history and ourselves.
Permit me to interject at that point, because is it that we have gone so far? Is it that we have gone so far back? And let me put context. In the era of the 60s and the 70s, we were benefiting from the labor struggles that you spoke of. But the majority of the population, save and except for an occasional uprising and so on and so forth, were largely just willing to just go with whatever flow then as we do now. Save and except for we had the African Liberation Movement, we had the Rastafarian, all of whom were minority groups that would agitate and lobby throughout the period. Have we really, really changed from that model? Isn't that still the model that is applicable today?
Well, you see, when you're going with the flow, you don't realize that the flow won't always be the same.
No, I understand. So, and that's what I'm trying to say. Because the point that I'm getting to, when you say that we have stepped backwards, to me, that is akin to. I'm going to make a very strange parallel. It's akin to when people say today that babies having babies. Babies have always been having babies in Antigua. So to suggest that what is happening to us now is that we have stepped backwards from where we were at some point, it probably more is that we have not progressed beyond where we stopped.
Is that the entire trend has been backwards, so we have gone with it. This is what is happening.
We'll put a jury out on that. But let me just wrap up with Mr. Johnson, and then we will come back over fully and make a switch. So, Mr. Johnson, I'm almost assistant. See, I get myself in trouble. We are looking forward next Wednesday to your presentation. Just give us an overview of what we can expect.
Well, yes, I don't want to give away too much,
Yeah,
but it'll be
2 seconds.
We have a lot of pictures and videos and a little bit of history of Angola and the experiences, some of the persons I met on my trip. And it's not only just going to be that in terms of who I met and what I did and that kind of thing. It's a little bit of giving my own views on as things we were discussing earlier, and my reasoning for going to Africa and how I feel about it, my own personal views, and trying to imbue the young persons in society and other persons, just like I spoke to you, that imbued my own daughter, and who actually eventually paid for my
Your kit.
My kit from AfricanAncestry.com on her own, and just trying to, as I say, it all starts from pride in your black race, pride in our black race. And I've always had that pride. Maybe other persons might not have had it, but I think once we have that pride, everything goes. And the pride comes from where we come from. Yeah, people are going to say all kind of things, what happened in Africa, and all sorts of things that are negative and etc. And what has happened to us is unfortunate, but it's happened. We just have to move on. We believe we are entitled to reparations, and I'm sure Mamba is here, Mamba Liverpool is here, another person will speak about that. Right, but at the end of the day, in my view, black is beautiful. I mean, that was the old phrase, right? Black is beautiful, right? I think it comes down to that one thing that I would like to promote. the one thing I would like to promote, pride in our black race, and I'm proud to be a black person. And with that, all that comes proficiency, efficiency, striving for the highest. Black people can do anything just like any other race. I don't want to go into all the various things we've done, etc. and so on. Black people are equal to anybody.
All
right? So,
on that note, I want to thank you for joining us. I am going to do my best. I'm going to have to sneak away from Sports Day. What time are we beginning?
7:30.
Give me enough time.
Right.
I will, and I'll bring along some young people. I think the young people in particular need to hear this one. So I'm hoping you'll be able to.
It's a personal story, and I think when you hear personal stories too,
they resonate.
It resonates, rather than sometimes out of a book or a magazine. All
right. Thank you very much,
and
all the best.
All right, Kunte.
All right. So, gentlemen, this is a good time now. Dr. Knight, we had already started a discussion, but normally when you visit at We're the Ones, and thank you both for agreeing to participate in this discussion, we normally begin by just sharing with our listeners and viewing. But gentlemen, you're on social media, you're on Facebook Live. We normally begin by sharing with our audience just a little snippet of who you are outside of the discussion we're going to have. I did say Dr. Knight already, so that's a hint. So Dr. Knight, just share with us a little bit of who is Dr. Knight.
Well, I am here because I am a part of the support committee.
No, hold on. We will get to why you're here.
To tell you.
Okay.
I'm getting to it.
Okay,
I'm here part of the support committee of the Reparations Support Commission.
Okay.
And you may say that I am here as a representative of the Leonard Tim Hector Memorial Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And in saying that, of which I'm a member since I was a teenager. That's about 1971. And
okay.
Now, as a matter of fact, last year, 2018 made 50 years since what was formed called the Afro-Caribbean movement. And the Afro-Caribbean movement became the Antigua Caribbean Liberation Movement early about the end of 71, early 72. It is a bit of history there that involves the Point area too.
Well, of course.
Because there was a group in Point called Youth Forces for Liberation.
Mm-hmm. Fumanchu will brief me on that. Go ahead.
Yes,
Barry.
Interesting you say that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Barry was a member of the ACLM, founding member of the ACM,
mm-hmm.
Afro-Caribbean movement. Mm-hmm. And Fumanchu was a member of Youth Forces for Liberation.
Mm-hmm.
He resisted a lot of things, but the consciousness he couldn't escape from.
Good afternoon, Fumanchu, if you're listening. Mm-hmm.
So what had happened was that in 1971, the ACM, the Afro-Caribbean movement, had issued some membership cards. And of course, with the beginning of the Rastafarian movement in Antigua, and it was a time when, for reasons having to do with the collapse of sugar and other issues in the world, there was a rising unemployment. And so you had a lot of unemployed people around, and some were wearing locks now, and the old people didn't take that too well. They didn't even say Rasta. They had a kind of hybrid between rascal and something. They used to say they rascorn them. So they, and there was that attitude. And the smoking of the herb was now becoming popular, and it was still known as dope. And so the police were on the rampant, and so you had they had, of course, delinquent people committing little offenses and so on, who would wear beret and
they
so
lumped
on.
everybody
and
together.
They say they have on their black power
they
clothes.
lumped everybody
so
together.
All black power, Rasta, Tim Hector, ACM people, So we're having that difficulty. So it was decided that one of the main issues was that the police were using the pretext of looking for herb and so on to harass members of ACLM who didn't smoke any herb. You understand? And so the decision was made that members should distance themselves from the herb for the sole reason of avoiding unnecessary confrontation with the law. It didn't sit too well with the guys from the YFL, and they left. But within months, they returned, the leader returned, bringing everyone behind them, Ricardo Mapp, and admitted, that it was a wise decision that the ACM had made. And the YFL now joined officially with ACM, and so it became Antigua Caribbean Liberation Movement. Right? So I come out of all that.
Okay. All right, gotcha. And Mr. Liverpool, Ambassador Liverpool, just give us a brief background to you.
Good afternoon to your many listeners on Point FM. It's certainly a pleasure and a delight for me to be sitting in the comfortable studio, and I have to get accustomed to seeing myself on video as well too.
Yes.
It's amazing that I'm saying that on the day. I think today is International
Radio Day. Yes.
The
I was going to end with that.
was had about whether the radio is changing, because they're now saying that we have radio you can see.
Radio you can see.
And hear.
Yes.
And I think the argument was made that radio is always about hearing.
Yes.
And the seeing part of it may fade.
Radio is forever.
Radio will be forever about hearing.
Yeah, because one thing, certainly computer, television, movie screen, whatever, you cannot close your eyes and lean back.
No.
And you enjoy it, appreciate it.
It's good to be here to be on Point FM radio. You can see and hear and will hear. And a special good afternoon to all your listeners. And I'm particularly delighted to be here because of the nature of the discussions we're having. But then, I know We Are the Ones is all about what we are talking about.
All about what we talk about.
It's about culture, it's about our music, it's about our way of life, it's about our achievements, it's about who we are, because we are the ones. So it's a pleasure for me to be here. Who am I? As Winston Derrick just said, I'm just a humble youth man from Ovals. And Otters.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
But
now.
I left Otters at a very young age,
Thank
so
you.
I spent most of my life in Ovals. So I'm just, good old Anthony Mamble Liverpool from Ovals.
Who doesn't remember? He taught me drama a long time ago.
Yeah, I've been involved in drama from a very young age. I was actually introduced to acting or doing a play from a good friend of mine from primary school, a guy named Amel Joseph. He may not even realize that. And Amel is from the Grace Green community and invited me to come down to the Grace Green community because they, in those days, used to do skits at Carnival. They had talent night at Carnival, and communities and groups would go and do a skit. They had different areas of competition, and they were going to put on a skit as part of the drama section of the talent night for Carnival. And I went down, and that was my beginning with my involvement in the Grace Green community with people like Chuck Walker, and out of that came the Third World Theatre. We started off originally as Mystic Brothers doing skits at Carnival, and then we merged into the Third World Theatre. And at the time, I had just started going to St. Joseph's Academy, which is the best school in the world.
Second best, but we won't discuss that today. Carry on. Or maybe third best.
I was a member of the.
We have different worlds.
Of the Glee Club in St. Joseph's Academy, and the Glee Club was basically a drama group. We did music and theater, and that's how my engagement with theater and drama came about. And then I think for me that just became a part of who I am. And for the rest of my life, I just spent that using the skills, the discipline, the knowledge, the techniques that I learned from theater to propel me into communication. I worked at ZDK as a teenager in those days, ZDK.
Did every media person pass through ZDK?
Well, I
back
guess
then?
ZDK or ABS.
Jeez, everybody had to put ZDK.
But no, I think It's an interesting you ask that question, because Ivor Bird was one of those persons who really created opportunities as much as possible, and felt that, you know, he wanted to give everybody an opportunity. And he used to have a thing called Scouting for Talent on ZDK on a Saturday, where young persons would get a half hour. Of course, you'd have to do quite a bit of prep work, and you'll get a half hour to show your worth on radio. And based on how effective you are, you know, you get a blind. And I think it was out of that experience that I got into. And as a teenager, I was still in high school, and I had an hour and a half, 2 hour show in the evenings as a DJ. And I'm just saying all of that to say, I became a communication became my love. And I studied communication. And even up to this day, the experiences I've had in theater, in working in community, in working on radio, are the skills that I use in what I'm doing today. So I'm saying all of this to say to young people that life in itself is an experience. But education does not end with primary school or high school or university. Education is an ongoing process of learning, and that you should take every opportunity to capitalize on experiences. And that's so I come out of that kind of experience.
And it's the education you got in those drama groups that has brought you here today, not those you got in the formal institutions.
Absolutely.
You jumped ahead of me.
Because those were the days when the black consciousness and everything was seeping into everything.
Absolutely.
And so you
absolutely.
So then, since Dr. Knight raised that issue, I want to tie something. When I was speaking to Mr. Johnson earlier, Leonard Johnson, he was insistent that for us to regain our pride, we must go back and to Africa, 1, and 2, we must not forget what happened during that era of slavery to us as a people. And I asked him, on behalf of many people that feel this way, why can't we just pick up from the pride and the legacy of our Antiguan or Caribbean ancestors without crossing back to slavery and back to Africa?
Any society in the world, if I should say, all societies are built on history. And our history did not start in Antigua. Our current existence is in Antigua. And because of our history and the knowledge and the embracing of that history, we can certainly strengthen who we are today. But we can't ignore it. And that's the mistake that we are making, and the kind of thinking that we are having, that we must be able. And don't fool yourself, because we do not come out of an experience of embracing that history. We're not even embracing the Antiguan history that we're saying that we should. You see, it's fundamental. When you look at ancient societies like the Chinese society, I mean, they're coming out of an experience where it is, for them, it is their history and the embracing of that history.
It is that which informs everything they do now.
We had a Chinese musical group here 2 years ago, and they were playing an instrument that is 3,000 years old.
I remember that.
We're still playing that today. But because we have been dragged away from our history, and we have come up in an existence that says, oh, where we are is bad, forget it, it's dark and old, let's try and move on, we end up being a little confused, because even the history that we are experiencing, or we have experienced in our current state, we're not even embracing that. You understand? Right. And that is critical. So for me, no, we have to understand where we came from. That's very, very important, because that's a very rich and solid history. And that gives you strength, that gives you knowledge, and it gives you a firm base on which you can stand to say, I am African. I come out of a strong, and pride, I come out of a very strong tradition. You see?
So
and one of the ways of helping to engender that, you know, it has to do with our school curriculum. It has to become very, very fundamental. That we have to begin to find a curriculum, ways of beginning to expose infants from nursery come all the way up about our African history. I think that is very, very, very critical. And I feel positive about it. Unlike Dr. Knight, who think we have moved backward, I'm saying we may have slowed down, but we haven't gone back.
Well,
Because a lot of our young people today, in the 21st century type of technology that they're using, are showing they have a consciousness. It's just that the movement, even in the 70s, was not a mass movement.
That is what I was suggesting.
It was not a mass movement, but it was a dominant movement. And it had a momentum. And I just think it has slowed, but I don't think we have gone back. I think we have influenced more people than we can imagine. And there are tremendous amount of young people who are still carrying the mantle.
I know Nadinola bleach disappeared from the market in the 70s. So I don't know what you're telling me.
No. Nadinola. Oh, you mean
Nadinola bleaching cream disappeared. Bleach disappeared.
I don't know about disappeared.
In the 70s,
I am
they're
going
just
to put
reappearing.
I'm going to put it to you that it didn't disappear. Where you were in your space, you didn't see it. But there were
take
other
a photograph
segments
of any mass gathering in Antigua in the early 70s, and you see all the women in there with afro here.
because that was a style.
Snicky,
It was a style. It had nothing to do with a consciousness.
Snick here disappeared.
Oh wait, that slick here was
But Jerry Curls came back.
Jerry Curls came in later.
Gentlemen,
But what
I'm going to put it to
definitely
you. It is a state of your consciousness. And in your space and your consciousness, there was no Nadinola. That is not to say that it disappeared.
I know, no. Nobody could sell Nadinola in Antigua. They wouldn't get any sale in the 70s. It had gone.
Sounds like you had put fear into
Iron
people.
comb disappeared.
That sounds like you were using a fate.
No,
tactic.
it had disappeared.
Iron comb disappeared in the 70s?
Yes.
No, sir. I know plenty of people from Point that used to use the same iron comb. Because, yes, I am telling you. I am not asking you, I'm telling you.
Well, yeah, yes. A few people use iron comb when I say disappear. But Nadinola, I know nobody was selling that bleaching cream.
I want to move on.
It is unmistakable that you can say what you like. You could not,
we're going to do an empirical research.
Even all women went and stopped processing the hair and all that, influenced by the younger people in their family, children and so on. That took place then. What we're seeing is a total reversal of that, all the bleaching and the rest of it.
But then we see an embracing of Rastafarianism.
I can tell you now that
when it was
I can tell you it's a style now too. Locks is a style.
Of course. So,
but there was always a style element to it, even back then.
Not only that, the concept of vegetarianism is more popular now than it was then.
When you saw a person with locks 45 years ago, it was a person who was going to sing something from Peter Tosh.
Hold on. I am going to challenge you on that. I am going to challenge you on that.
They were going to say something like that.
Dr. Knight, we're not going to dwell on it, but I'm going to remember you self said that your fraternity had advocated a movement away from certain elements because they recognized that it was being used as a social instrument and not as a conscious instrument. You self said it in your introduction.
There were people, but even out of their mouths, the fact that somebody was crooked would steal something didn't mean because they used to say when they steal something that they're liberating it. They take it back from the oppressor. You understand? This is what they would. If you listen.
No, all right. I will. In the interest of not. In the interest of moving forward, we will hold on that point.
To them, it was a matter of rebellion. Some of them that they would go somewhere and say, "Look, man, when you get these, for instance, it is not unique to us." If you read like the literature of Dostoevsky before the Soviet Revolution, and so you hear this classic book, Crime and Punishment, and Raskolnikov, he has distorted consciousness. He's seeing a pawnbroker now as a bourgeois because she makes some money by pawnbroking, and he is an educated man who is unemployed and well off, and he thinks that stealing from her is liberating something because he's taking it away from the haves. And so you had
Dr. Knight, hold on. No, Dr. Knight, I have to interrupt
you. They have their locks.
Dr. Knight,
against Babylon.
Dr. Knight, I have to interrupt you. Yes, we're going to stay on that point, and we have to be conscious of time. I want to change focus a bit now, and let us begin to look, because we've looked at the African heritage. Now, as a people, we have had how many years of slavery? I try not to think about it.
So, since emancipation.
How many years? No, how many years of slavery? 300 plus something.
3 centuries.
Right. And so we have, that forms a indelible part of our ancestry. That.
And culture today.
And culture that is not being dealt with. So I want us to look, well, not being sufficiently addressed. Let me put it that way. So I want us to now turn our minds to the whole issue and concept of reparations. And why do we think that that discussion needs to continue?
Well, I mean, the issue of reparations is very fundamental, and it has to do with the whole question.
And I'm going to be devil's advocate, just so you know. So.
It has to deal with the whole question of repairing an injustice that was meted out against a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, anybody who says to me that slavery was not an injustice, then I have a problem. Anybody who says to me that slavery was not a crime against humanity, well, I have a problem. Now, part of the legacy of enslaved people is that after a while, because you're talking about 3 centuries, I don't know if you can imagine 300 years. Because we live in a space where we don't live for more than 30, 40, 50, 90 years. So you begin to imagine 300 years. I don't think we can. But you need to sit down and dwell upon it. That you have generations after generation. So for a lot of us, the generation is, we're talking about, boy, in my time and your generation, and we only live in 50 years. But you're talking about people living 300 years over and over in the same kind of situation. After a while, people believe that. People think that's normal. People think that's right. And those of us who know better, that is part of our responsibility, to begin to unravel that kind of thinking in the minds of people. And that takes time, and that requires patience. Right? So the whole process of reparation, as we always say, is not a sprint. It's not an exercise in the next couple of years. You know that the prime ministers of the region are going to be bringing home the big check for Caribbean people. It's not. It's a journey. Because we have to begin with ourselves, huh? See that we as a people have to begin to understand, yes, a crime has been committed against the people. And we want justice for it. Full stop. That's all it is.
And the reason why we don't recognize it is that the very people who perpetrated the crime against us have taught us that it's not really a crime.
Yeah.
And have taught us not to talk. Don't think about Africa, all the backward, primitive animals that we brought here,
rescued,
and so forth. And so you are taught that you come from Ham, who was cursed, and all the rest of it. And so it is just what your lot was. You have to fulfill the book.
Yeah.
You understand? And so this is where reparation is important, because that is something that has to be repaired also. So, you understand?
So then when you begin to imagine that they not only committed a crime, because for us enslavement is keeping people in a space where they have no freedom. But we were not even considered people. See? And that's another important aspect, that as descendants of enslaved persons, because even for me and all, talking about slaves, and so I have a little problem, because the people that they brought here were just African people
who were enslaved here.
Who were enslaved. Like people can say, them slaves, like you're not born slave, you're being enslaved.
Unfortunately, some people were born slave. Those who were born here,
born into slavery,
right? Those born here, born into slavery.
They were born into slavery.
But Africans.
Right? I understand that. No, I understand that.
They're born into, but even as part of our unraveling, the language we use is also very important.
That's the conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's the conversation we need to have. But I'm saying, but even begin to just try. And I say that to people all the time. Let's not get into a big argument about whether we should move on from slavery. Just sit down and think that it is not just a crime, but they considered us non-human. That we were not even as valuable as the mules and the cows. We are part of the we are part of the product, part of the items on this plantation that is designed to generate economic wealth, and we were not human beings. So I say to people, just think through that for a little while, and then let's come back and have a discussion.
But then some people would say that that was yesterday. Yesterday, we were not considered human. Today, we are human and we are responsible for our destiny. Do we spend time trying to recoup going backwards, or do we focus on going forward? Dr.
Well,
Knight.
if somebody come with gun, break on your house, go outside in your garden where you grow your fruits, your flowers, everything, bash down your teeth, yes, everything you have, and run off with it, leave it in your house, and continue for centuries after to use what they got from your house to make profit, to set up their own place and leave you there struggling. Is it fair to come and tell you, come on man, snap out of that, do something for yourself?
Yeah.
Well, let me
with,
add.
With what?
Let me add. No, hold on, Angelica, hold on. Because I am being the devil's advocate here, right? I want to make it clear. When you say that people stole whatever and so on, but then over that time, you have been conditioned that, hey, this is where we are. This is where you are. Now, go forth and make the best from where you are.
But the process is continuous. They did that at that time, and they continue.
So here
it.
So here it is. That's exactly what we were told in 1834.
Agreed.
Go forward
And make the best of what you have.
Which was nothing.
And hear this, nothing. And hear this.
So how
hear
do
this.
we
Look
get
at-
that
look at
message
where-
to our people
but
today?
Hold on, look at where we are today. You see, look at where we are today. That we were kicked, raped, plundered, and we were thrown out with nothing, and say, swim. And we swam.
Well,
Look where we are. The people who committed
I don't
the
worry
crime.
about them, Angelica.
Hold
That's
on.
the thing. I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about us.
The people who committed the crime, they were compensated.
Yes.
And we still survive. We still survive. Look at our societies. Look at all the islands in the Caribbean. We're not failed economies. We're not failed society. And you know what? We have reached to a stage where we have competed with the rest of the world. So we can have Nobel laureates. We can have the best in cricket. We can have the best in athletics.
We have all
We
sorts
can
of
have the best
institutions.
in music.
All sorts of institutions that
You
are
understand?
exemplary
We can
this way.
create the only instrument created in the 20th century. And these are the people that were given nothing and told make do.
So-
okay, hold on. So having done that, you are going to say now that this generation.
One second.
And-
Who's the
and-
you?
Huh?
Who's the you? Because it's the you I want to address. Having said that, you are going to say that this generation.
You-
Who is the you?
Those people.
The devil who you
the devil
advocating for.
advocates.
Okay,
who are
so
saying those
stop.
things.
So stop.
Uh-huh.
Here are the people. Here is the you that I want to put into that space, because there are those among us who would have gone through all of this experience, who are part of the people who got nothing and made something out of it, who have said, listen, notwithstanding all of that, this is where we are today.
And that's
Hold
but
on,
if you
hold
just
on. I ain't
allow me-
finished,
but
I ain't
you're not
finished.
allowing me to
Okay,
take
go
my
ahead.
trend of
Sorry,
all
go
the
ahead.
way through.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
My apologies.
And that's
This is
exactly
good.
what that's exactly what I'm saying.
Right, 'cause
Is
those
that
are the
look at
people.
where we are at now, and that's another discussion for another time that I think we need to celebrate, because I think we have done a lot better than we credit ourselves as a people in the region, as a people who are not independent countries for more than 60 years, with Jamaica being the first, right? That we have done exceptionally well in managing our societies and maintaining the kind of economic developments that we have experienced. And we need to begin to celebrate that more as a people and stop pulling down. But that's another
Hence
discussion.
why we do we're the ones.
But that's another
Continue.
discussion for another time. But so we have done well. But we are now part of a generation that says, here it is. The people who were freed in 1834, they were so happy for that. They were given nothing. And we are now descendants of those people. And we are saying a crime was committed. They knew that too in 1834 and before that. All those who had those revolts, all those who jumped off the ship before they knew that. So we're just continuing the struggle. This struggle for reparation is not a new thing that Domino Man and some fellas just decided.
And, the concept is not new because the Jews got reparations.
Exactly.
The Aborigines in Australia got reparations.
Again.
Society is just progressive.
Stay with me.
I'm with you.
Gentlemen and ladies,
so we
stay
are
with
now
me.
at that stage where we're saying a crime has been committed.
Stop right there.
The greatest crime against humanity.
Yeah.
Dr. Knight, stop right there. Here's what I'm saying. My questions today are not looking for the people who perpetuated the crimes. I'm looking at us as a society that needs to do better at unifying for progress. And we internally are saying to others of ourselves that there is no need to discuss reparations.
And that's why
those are the ones that I want to focus on.
I started off by saying, try and wrap around your head 300 years of slavery. That's not something you unravel overnight.
And there are many of us who don't want to do that.
Okay, look at something practical. For us to get a comprehensive, curriculum that would give the correct perspective on history, restore pride in us, give the true history of the experience and the significance of it, so that our young people have a sense of self-worth as black people, sense of history, and can chart their future in accordance. To do that, it would cost millions of dollars, somebody says, just to produce the books, whether hard copy or e-books or whatever, right? We don't have the money. We doesn't have the money, even though the idea is there. Reparations. Harvard Law School built from slave money in Antigua.
Right here in Antigua.
Right. You have Codrington people made money and left. The Beckfords in England made money. The Pinneys in Mavis who came with a bottle of whiskey and a Bible and went back with millions of pounds.
But that's still happening today.
So what I'm saying is, worse yet, it is continuing. So what we're saying is, those people, as a form of reparations, should finance this program. It's not just a question of the money, but now repairing the psychological damage that has been done to our people from which they have benefited, because that psychological damage is deliberate so as to make us not think anything of ourselves. It was important. Remember, discrimination against black people is recent, it's just to justify slavery. Before that, there was no discrimination against black people. And if you look in the history, and you look in many societies up to now, you see black people, because black people were all over participating in the great civilizations and everything. When I was surprised when I went to university first, and they're showing me people from Yemen and Bahrain, and there's a black Turkish girl, and so these people, and so here you have, there was no discrimination that time. Black men and women were all over the world. They probably crossed the Atlantic on their own free will too, before the Atlantic slave trade. So this whole notion of the inferiority of black people was something that was sold to the world so as to justify the enslavement, and so well sold from everywhere, including the pulpit, that all over the world now black people are discriminated against for no reason.
And Dr. Knight,
Petra, just to say something quickly, to add to something quickly, you playing the devil's advocate.
No, it's more than that. What I'm trying to get at is that for me, the challenge with the whole reparations process, and for the record, because I think Dr. Knight thinks that I'm against reparations. I am not. No. But the discussions that I get oftentimes, and guess what, among professional people, and you can't say, because you need their buy-in and the resources to get this done, is that
professionalism is a loose term.
Is that the energies that we need. See, for example, Dr. Knight mentioned about the need to get our history documented so that we can begin to look at the mindset of our generations to come. The suggestion is that rather than continue, and it is not that there's not an acknowledgement that slavery happened, that we suffered, and all of that. The suggestion is that, so, all of this happened, and in spite of that, as Liverpool said, we have gotten this far on our own bootstrap. Do we take energies and scarce resources to battle for reparations, which we are unlikely to realize, or do we take all of that energies and continue to plod forward as a people?
We will always continue to plod forward.
And we need the reparations as part of the plodding forward.
We have been plodding forward for the last 180 years since emancipation.
Not to leap, not
and that
plod.
is us. So that's not in doubt. We will always be plodding forward. One of the things, and I go back, we have to begin to wrap around our head the impact of 300 years of slavery on a society. And one of that is a psychological legacy,
conditioning.
A conditioning that still exists in a significant way today.
So let's
That's
discuss
okay,
the
hold
conditioning.
on. And therefore, the unraveling of that is not an easy exercise.
No.
So yes, of course, you're going to have people. You don't think in the days of King Court, there were people who would say, well, you're going to do this thing, leave the marshal. Of course there were. But we have a responsibility. Because if our forefathers and our ancestors just sat down and nobody was revolting and carrying on, and so we would not be here today.
Exactly.
So we have built on that.
But
I think
there are those who argue that is not true.
I think the problem is we believe we're so far removed from
We're not very
slavery.
far. We're not very
That's
far
the
removed.
argument that we believe.
Even if in our modern day history, and people like V.C. Bird and all those stalwarts who stood up against the colonials sat back and say, hey, what are y'all arguing for? Let's just plod forward. Let's just go ahead. No things gonna work out. We would not be here today. So we come out of a history of constantly trying to ensure that equal rights and justice are meted out. That's all it is. But as I said, we in the reparations movement and process recognize that it's slow. So yes, the naysayers, those who are saying we have to be patient because it is a symptom of the psychological legacy coming out of 300 years of slavery. But we have to, every generation, when you look forward, from emancipation, you had the early colonial, those who fought the colonial system. Then you have the nationalist movement that worked towards our independence. Looking and making an argument for reparation is just a continuation of that struggle. That's
what
all it
happened. Petra, there's a 2015-2016 article that came out that basically said the British Crown was still paying, at that point, was still paying back debt, a loan incurred to cover the abolition of slavery, to cover all of the slave owners who lost their money. And that's to tell you that
many French colonies are still paying for their slavery. They're independent. So
if that is still happening, then
but
it's
you see,
not.
I don't like you. You're still, and Angelica, forgive me. I'm bringing this. I notice I'm deliberately keeping it here because and the reason why I'm doing that, gentlemen and ladies, because I think that in the whole discussion about reparations, oftentimes we tend to just tell persons, listen, just accept that we need to fight this battle without, as Ambassador Liverpool was doing, without breaking it down, consistently breaking it down, especially in terms of the impact on our psyche. I think it's something that we generally just accept and just move on.
Let me give you an example.
Because you mentioned about, just a minute, the professional. The first team Antigua to cross the Atlantic, and everybody was excited. I said, you mean they crossed the whole Atlantic and don't even mention anything about the Middle Passage, the horror of it? And a young professional, a doctor, look at me and say, well, you have to bring up negative things at this time. Right? So the point is that conditioning, that is the greatest repair that has to be done, and they have to finance it.
Yes, but my point
and
is
they have to apologize.
First apologize.
Apologize, admit that they did something so black people will understand. It's true. Oh Lord, the white people now apologize.
So here is my point.
They really did so, because a lot of black people are not going to accept that the white people committed crimes against them till the white people themselves say so.
And I'm accepting your argument that we need to consistently break it down, because the battle of unshackling and freeing the mind is not an easy one. And one of the things, and Doc can back me up medically, that currently in Antigua and Barbuda, it costs the government millions of dollars to treat those of us that are hypertensive.
Don't talk about hypertension right now. I'm in a battle.
I'm just telling you.
That's a product
Right?
of our health
And diabetes.
from slavery.
And it's been argued, and Doc, I don't know the scientific details of it, but it can be linked to
it's
300
part of
years
our
of
legacy.
fatigue, because it is a lifestyle disease. So to say to us, well, slavery gone, so forget it. We still live in it. We still live in things as a result of that experience, that conditioning, that inability for us to celebrate who we are and feel proud that we are the ones. That is the conditioning, that mental conditioning that we have to unravel and we have to break down constantly going forward. And therefore, I need to add to what Doc is saying, that reparation is not just about repayment, that you need to apologize because you created a crime. You have created a crime. Now, some of us get very passionate about it because of the level of our consciousness. That's okay. But we have a responsibility to constantly reach out to people who are not there to say to them, come on, think about this thing. This is a crime.
And that's how I'd like to wrap up.
And internationally, because you have to know you're walking in China, that China man realize, no,
Yes.
this is not, black man is not an animal. The white people now say that they were wrong to say so.
Yeah.
And so in terms of wrapping up, because we are just about out of time, and I think this is a very interesting discussion. We need to break it down a bit more, so I'm promising another session. But here is what, for me, when I do this program, I normally want to leave my audience with a takeaway. We have done we have ventilated on our African legacy and our African connection. We've looked at not at reparations in and of itself, but why it is that it is something that must resonate with us at all times. So for me, I would like to ask each of you, looking at us as a people, all right? As a people, and as a people whom are continuously challenged just to be, because that is still our reality, unfortunately. How do we inspire our young people in particular, especially since we don't have that basket of resources that we want to have to do the things that are necessary? What do we do today as part of this reparations commission, as part of the African Memorial Society, as part of a Black Caribbean, Antiguan people looking forward and needing to continue to build our legacy? What do we tell our young people?
We need to tell our young people that we need to celebrate who we are. And I go back to your title of your program, We Are the Ones. So We Are the Ones is one very positive way of reinforcing what I'm going to say. Just the name of your program that people hear every day. We are the ones. We are a proud people with a very strong and rich tradition. We are a people, in spite of and because of the lack of, have done well. So we were given freedom with nothing, and we have made something of who we are as Antiguans and Barbudans and the rest of the Caribbean. And therefore, we need to start celebrating that more. We need to start celebrating our goodness, celebrating our achievement as a people, because we are small. We don't have any military power. We don't have any great resources. All we have are ourselves. And the sooner we begin to celebrate more and stop pulling down, I think we are on the right track. I think we are on the right track to continue the discussion and to continue the struggle towards reparation.
Mr. Knight?
Yes, because it's an inferiority complex made people go out, even with narrow political motives, vote against the Caribbean Court of Justice, because the white people themselves were saying that the selection of judges, the financing, everything is superior to theirs, and they admire the CCJ. But we here feel inferior, and that is very important. And so we are the first people on this earth. We are the ones, we started the earliest civilizations. And the mistake that many people make is sending around a lot of messages in Black History Month, talking about the woman Henry, through whom we have the GPS, the man through whom we have the cell phone, somebody instrumental in the internet. You know, we can talk about that's a feedback from someone.
It's probably the printer.
Go ahead, talk.
Yeah.
If you can.
So we can talk about the black man, for in whose name we say people ask for the real McCoy, and all the rest of it. But that is only reinforcing the notion that we are only somebody since we came on this side of the Atlantic. And that is very painful to me. I pointed it out to a few people who posted things on Facebook, and they said to me, well, like one person in the United States told me, well, we're celebrating what, we did here. And I said, yes, but it's reinforcing the notion that black history began on this side of the Atlantic. And we were on the cutting edge of the technology at the time before we came this way. And this is it. We were the first people, we were the earliest civilizations, and they met us civilized in our continent. Not only that, we participated in the great civilizations in different parts of the world. And so we, in that sense, we are the ones from the beginning. And so our history didn't begin with on this side of the Atlantic, And I always give this story of when President...
Tonight I'm going to have to cut you. I'm so sorry.
Yes, okay. But basically
I promise
what
you that
I'm
we
saying,
will definitely be
back.
back.
The point is that our history did not begin on this side of the Atlantic. The great accomplishments, etc., were there ages ago, thousands of years, and
we need to begin
that was
to share
destroyed, and the history distorted so that we would not know that or believe that, so that we could be satisfied with the exploitation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Angelica, I'm going to cut you because we are
That's
really
okay.
under the gun. But I'd like to thank you all for being a part of our program this afternoon. I think we had a very good discussion. And I just want to remind our listening and viewing audience that there are two very important events next week, Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we have the public lecture by Lenward Johnson on his pilgrimage to Angola, the journey back home, and that will be at the UWI Open Campus. It begins at 7:30 p.m. next Wednesday the 20th, and admission is free. And in the afternoon, you can go out to the Best Schools Sports Day.
Oh, yes,
Of
PMS.
course, it's a production and it's an event, and the funds from that sports day goes back into the development program for the athletes at Princess Margaret, and the nation has seen the benefits from that. So it's students who attend the Princess Margaret School pay $5, and the rest of us will pay $10, and we can go out and have a fabulous time at that event. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in to We Are the Ones, where we discuss issues about us, by us, for us, and celebrate us. And Petra Williams, on behalf of my guests, signing out, wishing everyone a beautiful rest of week and a wonderful weekend, and see you next Wednesday. Good evening.
Thanks.
It's P to the A, K to the I, double S in the club. Rock out and just wine, every gal. Rock out and just wine, rubber dub. Rock out and just wine. Wine pan timing, now lining. These girls just have me away, you know. They say me low, them a go on tonight, you know.